I don't know if they had grandkids this weekend or not. Good morning. We good? I trust you had a good week this week, Pete. Everybody had a good week. We've enjoyed the cold weather the last few days. It's cold. It got cold all of a sudden again. Goodness, I didn't see the snow. It wouldn't surprise me though. It was cold. We was driving, so we wasn't even here. So it was cold where we came from too. Cold everywhere. This morning, I'm gonna just Romans chapter 4 is where we're gonna read from today, and we're not going anywhere else. But I'm probably gonna read about the whole chapter. But this morning, I'm just gonna start reading, and we'll go from there. It says, "So how do we fit what we know of Abraham, our first father in the faith, into the new way of looking at things? If Abraham, by what he did for God, got God to approve him, he could certainly have taken credit for it. But the story we're given is a God story, not an Abraham story. What we read in scriptures is Abraham entered into what God was doing for him, and that was the turning point. He trusted God to set him right instead of trying to be right on his own. If you're a hard worker and you do a good job, you deserve your pay. We don't call your wages a gift. So if you work hard and you go to a job, they didn't give you something, you earned it. You worked for it. What we get from God is not something that we earn. It's a gift. There's two different things. It's not something you earn. It's something He gives. When I was preparing for today, I kind of thought about Leah teaches Mama, obviously. But still in the same vein as where God's had me is that, we, and I have to say He's teaching me to expand, to get bigger, to see who I am, to see who He's created me to be, and to not put limitations on that, to not stop that, to allow that to grow. It's a process. Not that He's processing me, but it's Angie learning. But that we put conditions on God. That God loves us unconditionally, and gifts are free. Gifts are not something we earn. Gifts are not something that are given on a conditional basis. I'm going to give you this if this happens. Well, then it's not a gift. You earned it, or you did something to earn it, or you met a goal and so they gave it to you. Like if I tell Leah, if you make straight A's, I'll give you $100. Well, she did something for that. It wasn't a gift. She did something to earn it. I put a condition on it. If she doesn't make straight A's, I'm not giving her the $100. So it's not a gift. I put a condition on it. So it wasn't free. She worked for it. And God doesn't put conditions on who we are, who He created us to be. The condition is not upon Him, and He doesn't put conditions on that. And like I've been saying over and over, is Leah doesn't put conditions on who God is. She doesn't put conditions on how much God loves her, because she was never taught that. So it's free to her. It is who she is, because it is who God says she is. God loves me, and I'm His kid. And that's all there is to it. But if you see that the job is too big for you, that it's something only God can do, and you trust Him to do it, then you could never do it for yourself, no matter how hard or long you worked, Well, that trusting Him to do it is what gets you set right with God, by God, a sheer gift. Say, Angie, I'm going to use myself an example. Y'all know I'm a fixer, right? Told y'all that's who I am. I'm a fixer. I want to make it right. I want to know that it's going to be okay. I want to figure out how it's going to work. That's just my human nature. Okay, that's my human nature. So instead of, sometimes things are not, I could probably fix them on my own. Probably make it happen. It's within my scope to make it right. I could, somehow I could do it. But you know what? God's fixing it and making it right is bigger and better than my fixing it and making it right. Say, if I would learn that Angie doesn't have to fix it and make it right. God's already taken care of it. And then if I would trust Him, if I would see that, hey, it's too big for me. Why is it too big for me? Because my God's bigger than me and He's already taken care of it. I don't need to fix it. I don't need to make it right. I need to trust God and understand that He's already made it right. Therefore, I'm right and it's all right. And it was a gift from Him. Why? Because He's Daddy. Because He's Daddy. That's the only reason why. So David confirms this way of looking at it, saying that the one who trusts God to do the putting everything right without insisting on having a say in it is one fortunate man. So that's what I'm saying. If I don't insist on having a say in the way it's done, if I can trust God, if I can put it in His hands and say, God, I don't understand. I don't understand your ways. I don't get them. You know why I don't get them? Because they're bigger than my thought process. They're bigger than what I can understand. You have a bigger plan than what I can even think or imagine. But if I can understand that if I'm putting it in your hands and I'm giving it to you and I no longer have a say on how it works out. Why? Because if it's God's way, it's the best way for me. If it's God's way, it's the best way for me. And guess what? It's always good. It's always good. It's always good. It's always for my good. It's always for my best. Even though if I don't understand and I don't get it, and I don't get the way of going there, the end is always what's best for me. And it's always good. So if I can learn to say, I don't need to have a say. I don't need to have a no. All I need to know is, Daddy's got it. He's got it. He's already made the way. He already has the plan. And it's best for Angie. Say, fortunate those whose crimes are carted off, whose sins are wiped clean from the slate. Fortunate the person against whom the Lord does not keep score. Do you think for 1 minute that the blessing is only pronounced over those who keep religious ways and are circumcised? Or you think it's possible that blessing could be given to those who never heard of our ways, who were never brought up in the disciplines of God? We all agree, don't we, that it was by embracing what God did for him that Abraham was declared fit for God. So just like everything that we've been taught, God's just not for me. God just didn't send Jesus for me because I am a Christian or because I follow the rules. Like the Bible tells us, it wasn't just for the Jews. It was for everybody. It wasn't just for the ones that knew. Can we believe that what God has done is for everybody? We believe that. What God did was for everybody. So there's blessing on everyone. God's life is for everybody. And it's not just about going somewhere someday. It's about this life that we now live. It's about the life that we live. The promise that God gave Abraham was for his life that he was living. It wasn't for someday later who he was, was going to be after he died. It was about who he was, about who God had created him to be, the life that he had given him to live on this earth. But we, who know God and have a relationship with him, should embrace what God's done for us. We should take a hold of that and understand that, hey, look, God's done something for me, and he's done everything good and right for Angie. He's made a way that's the best way, that is making Angie who he created her to be, who fulfills every dream and desire that he's put on the inside of me. It fulfills every dream and desire that he's put on the inside of me. There's a person that I desire to be, that I dream of being. Dean had a dream the other night. And he dreamed that somebody famous was singing his song. And he said, I'm sitting on the front row and somebody's saying, man, I like that song. That's a good song. He's like, I know, but I wrote it. They're singing it, but I wrote it. There's a dream and a desire of music in him. God put that there. I don't believe that he gave him a talent for no reason, that he gave him an ability for no reason. He gives us talents and abilities, and he puts dreams and desires on the inside of us. And I believe that's the people that he's created us to be. I don't think God is a trickster who would give us a dream and a desire and then say, nope, you can't do that. Nope, that's not who you are. That's not who I created you to be. He put that in you because that's who he created you to be. And he's given you the ability, and he's worked it all out that you be the person he created you to be. That you live the life that he's given you to live that fulfills who he created you to be. And we need to embrace that. We need to embrace the Christ that's on the inside of us. Embrace him. Embrace the knowledge that God is a good God. That he's Daddy God, and that he loves me, and that he's given me everything I need to live this life that he's given me to live. It says, now think, was the declaration made before or after he was marked by the covenant of the rite of circumcision? So did God declare who Abraham was before Abraham did something? Or after Abraham did something? He declared, it says that's right, before he was marked. That means that he underwent circumcision as evidence and confirmation of what God had done long before to bring him into this acceptable standing with himself. An act of God he had embraced with his whole life. So Abraham did something as evidence of what God had already done for him. He says, I'm doing this because God's already done something for me. I want to show you who God created me to be. I want to show the world who God made me be, what God has done for me. It was Abraham's way of showing who God was in him, who God had created him to be. Not a way for Abraham to get God to do something. It was the opposite. It says, and it means further that Abraham is father of all people who embrace what God does for them while they're still on the outs with God, as yet unidentified as God's in an uncircumcised condition. It is precisely these people in this condition who are called set right by God with God. It says Abraham is also, of course, father of those who have undergone the religious rite of circumcision, not just because of the ritual, but because they were willing to live in the risky faith embrace of God's action for them, the way Abraham lived long before he was marked by circumcision. So Abraham's willingness to embrace God, to say, okay, God, here I am. I don't understand. I don't know. But you've given me a promise. You said this is who I am. And I'm going to live like the man you said I am. I'm going to live like the man you said I am, whether I see it or whether I don't. I know this is who you created me to be, and I know this is the life that you've given me to live, and I'm embracing that. The famous promise God gave Abraham that he and his children would possess the earth was not given because of something Abraham did or would do. It was based on God's decision to put everything together for him, which Abraham then entered when he believed. If those who get what God gives them only get it by doing everything they are told to do and filling out all the right forms properly signed, that eliminates personal trust completely and turns the promise into an ironclad contract. That's not a holy promise, that's a business deal. A contract drawn up by hard-nosed lawyers and with plenty of fine print only makes sure that you will never be able to collect. But if there's no contract in the first place, simply a promise, and God's promise at that, you can't break it. So we got to see that it's not, when we try to put it in our court, and we try to do everything right, and we try to do something to earn what God has given us, then we make it something that we're never going to obtain. We're never going to get it, because that's not why it was given to us. Then, like I said, then it's no longer a gift. It's no longer a promise. It's something I had to earn. It's something I worked for. I can't work hard enough to be the person that God created me to be. I can't work hard enough to live the life that God created for me to live. Because in this flesh, I am not Donald Trump's daughter. Okay? I'm Earl Rotan's daughter, which is a great thing. My daddy loves me a lot. And I know that. But in the flesh, there are things that he cannot give me, that if I was Trump's daughter, he could give me. Okay? But guess what? I'm God's daughter. And that's way better. That's way better, because now it's not conditional on what this earth sees. It's not conditional upon what the world sees Angie can do. Because you know what? They don't see me like they see Trump's daughter. Why? Because I don't have the power and influence she has just because of who her daddy is in the flesh. But guess what? I have more power and influence than she does because of who my daddy is.
Amen.
But we have to begin to embrace that. We have to begin to see that. We have to begin, like Abraham, embrace the fact that I am father of many nations. I am the father of all people, and he didn't even have a child yet. But he began to embrace who God had created him to be. He began to embrace the promise of who God had said he was, even before he saw it, just because God said it. And he understood that, guess what? There's nothing, hey look, Abraham and Sarah did some things that God didn't tell them to do to try to make it happen. But did that break the promise that God had given Abraham? Did that change the fact that Abraham was who God said he was? or that he gave Abraham a son the way he said he would give Abraham a son, it didn't change the promise that God had given him. Even though he didn't do it exactly the way God said to do it. God's promise never changed. I'm not saying go out and live life willy-nilly. But what I'm saying is that we are not perfect people. And it's not conditional upon who I am in the flesh. It's conditional upon who I have been created to be because of the Christ that lives on the inside of me. That's the only condition. It has nothing to do with me. It says this is why the fulfillment of God's promise depends entirely on trusting God and His way, and then simply embracing Him and what He does. God's promise arrives as pure gift. That's the only way that anyone can be sure to get in on it. Those who keep the religious traditions and those who have never heard of them. For Abraham is father of all of us. He is not our racial father. That's reading the story backwards. He's our faith father. Guess what? He's not reading it from who you are in the flesh makes you who you are. He's reading it from who you are, who you've been created to be, makes who you are. We call Abraham father not because he got God's attention by living like a saint, but because God made something out of Abraham when he was nobody. Isn't that what we've always read in Scripture? God saying to Abraham, I set you up as father of many peoples. Abraham was first named father and then became father because he dared to trust God to do what only God could do. Raise the dead to life. With a word, make something out of nothing. When everything was hopeless, Abraham believed anyway. Decided to live not on the basis of what he saw he couldn't do, but on what God said he would do. So living from a place, I can't do it. There's nothing I can do to make this happen. There was nothing Abraham could do to make Sarah have their child. There was nothing he could do. There's nothing he could change. But he decided, I'm going to live my life knowing that God said something. God gave me a promise. God gave me a word. God said this is who I am. God said that I am the father of many peoples. This is who God created me to be. This is the promise He put on the inside of me. And that is who I am. No matter what the world sees, that is who I am. Live life not by what we can't do, but by what God said He would do. And so He was made father of a multitude of people. God Himself said to him, you're going to have a big family, Abraham. Abraham didn't focus on his own impotence and said, it's hopeless. His 100-year-old body could never father a child, nor did he survey Sarah's decades of infertility and give up. He didn't tiptoe around God's promise, asking continuously skeptical questions. He plugged into the promise and came up strong, ready for God, sure that God would make good on what He said. That's why it said Abraham was declared fit before God by trusting God to set him right. But it's not just Abraham. It's also us. The same thing gets said about us when we embrace and we believe the one who brought Jesus to life when the conditions were equally hopeless. The sacrifice Jesus made us fit for God, set us right with God. We're in the same place that Abraham was in. We have a promise. We have a word. We have a good God who said, this is who you are. You are my people. You are priests and you are kings and you are lords. This is who I created you to be. You are the healed of the Lord. We are prosperous. We are more than conquerors. We are more than able. This is what God said about us. This is who God declares that we are. There are things that He said to you and said, Sally, this is the promise I've made to you. There are things that He said to me, Angie, this is the promise I've made to you. That is who you are. That is who God created you to be. But I've got to get out of my own stinking way. Got to get out of my own stinking way and realize what He said to me. He didn't say, Angie, I'm going to give you this, or Angie, this is who I've made you be if you do this. He said, this is who you are. This is who I created you to be. This is what I've given you. No conditions, no ifs, ands, or buts. Just trust me. Get out of your own stinking way and see that you are who I created you to be. Move out of your own way. And don't set limitations. Don't put up walls. Don't make reasons why you can't. Abraham could have made all kinds. Look, I'm so old. Sarah's so old. We tried for. It ain't ever happened. It ain't ever gonna happen. I don't know what God was thinking. So I got to figure this out on my own because God obviously can't do it. We do that. Maybe not say God can't do it, but that's what we trying to make it happen on our own. So that's what we saying. Whether that's what came out of my mouth or not, I'm trying to make it happen on my own because I don't see how He can do it. Stop. I need to stop. He's proven over and over and over, if you stop and think, how many times in your life has He proven Himself? How many times in your life has He done the impossible? Has He made a way bigger than the way that you thought was there? You are who God created you to be. You are bigger than the person that anybody else sees. I am bigger than the Angie that you see standing before you. I'm bigger than what you could think or imagine about this Angie right here. I'm bigger than that. Why? Because my God's bigger than that. And the promise that He's given me, the person that He's created me to be, the desires that He's put inside of me, He put them there because that's who He wants me to be. He put them there because that's the life that He's given me to live. That's the person He says that I am. And the place that I need to be is that, God, you said it. That's all I need to know. That's the promise you gave me. That is who I am. That's the life that you've given me to live. And no matter what anybody else sees, no matter what anybody else says, there are no conditions upon that. The only condition is I am yours and you are mine. And this is the life that you've given me. This is the person you've created me to be. And I am able. And I am capable. And those things are true about me. And I am set right with you. And set right just doesn't mean that I'm going to go to heaven someday. Set right means that I am in a place that you put me. That I am in the life that you put me in. That I can live a life that is more than enough. That I can live a life where I reap where I have sown not. I can live a life out of a promised land, out of a place that is more than enough. That is more than what Angie needs. Why do I need more than what Angie needs? Because somebody else needs more than what Angie needs. Somebody else needs to see how much Jesus loves them. Somebody else needs to see the life that He's given them to live. And the only way that I can give something to someone is if I have it myself. Is if I've learned to possess who Christ is. Abraham couldn't tell anybody. We couldn't read that Abraham became the father of many nations, that Abraham became who God created him to be, if Abraham didn't see that he was set right with God. And that he was made right not because of what Abraham did, but because of the promise that God had given him. And I'm going to trust in that promise no matter what I see today. I am the father of many nations. No matter what I see tomorrow, I am the father of many nations. No matter what happens next year, I am. That is who I am. That is who God created him to be. You are who God created you to be. No matter what you see today, tomorrow, or next year, you are still that person. You still have the ability and the capability of living the life that God has given you to live, to fulfill the promises that He's put on the inside of you. The only thing you have to do is embrace Him. Embrace the Christ on the inside of you. Put your trust in Him, not in you. Go and see who live a bigger you this week. I'm going to live a bigger Angie tomorrow than I did today, because the Christ on the inside of me is bigger than the life that I'm living. The desires on the inside of me are bigger than what I'm living today, because God has put them there. And the life that He's given me to live is bigger and is better and is greater. I am bigger, I am better, I am greater because of the Christ that's on the inside of me. And there's a life for me to live, and there's a life for me to embrace, and there's something for me to do because of Him. Not because of me, but because of Him, because of the Christ that's on the inside of me. And the same promise that He gave him, that he is set right, the same promise that was given to Abraham, I am set right with God. And I want God to begin to show me exactly what that means, because it's bigger. Being set right with Him is bigger. It's bigger than just being... It's bigger than what my future holds in the hereafter. It's about this life that I now live. It's about where I am today. It's about where you are today in this life that you're living. Allow Him to show you that you are set right with Him, and how big that is, how great that is, how awesome that is, and what that means about this life that you are now living. Thank you.